Welcome to the Grit and Grace podcast, where real conversations meet real growth. This is the place where we lean into life's challenges with grit and rise above them with grace. Whether you're here for encouragement, practical tools, or a reminder that you're not walking this journey alone, you're in the right place. So let's dive in.
I'm excited today because one of our last podcasts, you interviewed me. And this time, the tables are turned, and I'm interviewing Bethany. So I get to sit across her today, not as just her co-host. I get to sit across from her as the heartbeat of Grace Wellness. She is a wife, a mom of 4 girls, a marathon runner, a Boston qualifier, and a woman of deep faith. But before all that, who is Bethany Starks at her core? So we're going to start with rapid fire questions. This is fun. I'm excited.
A little intimidating. Yes. My turn to sweat today.
Okay, so question number 1. What's one word that describes this season of your life?
Super easy question, busy.
Current worship song on repeat.
Okay, current worship song on repeat. I really like worship songs, so this changes. John Reddick, Made Away. So the words are, you made a way when our backs were against the wall, when it felt like it was over, you made a way. And that's kind of the chorus of the song. And so I've had that on repeat since we went to his concert. Yeah, it just talks about nothing being impossible with God.
Okay.
Yep.
What's something you've learned about yourself this year?
Something that I've learned about myself this year is I can run farther and faster than I thought I could last year. Yeah, because I've done a lot of marathons close together.
Favorite way to move your body or clear your mind?
Running. Yeah.
We're seeing a theme here, guys. Biggest lesson from running marathons that applies to your leadership?
Okay, so such an interesting question that I have recently contemplated because leadership, I'm always trying to cultivate leadership. So leadership is much like running a marathon in that when you implement something and it doesn't work out, then you go back and you reevaluate and you retrain and you do it again. And so we do that every day in leadership. So maybe something that you thought was going to work didn't. And so you just have to keep training, go back to the group, keep moving forward.
Amen. You've got to be flexible.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
What's your go-to healthy snack in the clinic?
Okay, so I have this perfect little triad. It's also what I travel with, live on, perfect macros, beef jerky, nuts, and granola.
Sounds great. A quote or mantra you find yourself repeating often?
So we have referenced this here before, but I tell patients every single day because so many times patients come to me and they feel a little bit hopeless. And so I try to bring them hope. And so I always tell them you are not without hope.
That's a good one. What's one product or wellness habit you've obsessed with right now?
One of my good little products you actually introduced me to that we took on our last trip, it was like a Shark Tank thing called Fireflies, and they're like a little portable throwaway tinge unit, and you can wear them on an airplane for recovery, or, we had long flights and we both had legs twitching with those Fireflies. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah, I do agree.
Yes.
They last a long time.
They do. I just threw my first one away. They last like 30 hours.
I wore mine yesterday.
Yeah.
It's still going, my first pair. Favorite thing about working with me?
Oh, you know what? My favorite thing, there's so many.
No pressure.
You know what? My favorite thing about working with you is just that you challenge me to continue to be the best I can be, to do big things, set big goals, and walk it out with integrity.
I like it. What do you hope people feel after listening to Grit and Grace?
I hope that people are inspired that we are moms and wives and busy just like them, but we prioritize ourselves so that we can pour into other people.
Amen. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
I think I told y'all this on our little trip that we just went on. I was like the church drummer all through high school and like my 20s. So the church drummer left, and my dad was the worship leader. We needed a drummer when I was like about 14 probably. And so I took drum lessons from like the greatest drum teacher and was the church drummer. Even after I had, I think, our oldest kid, I was still the church drummer. Yeah. So
That is something that
Yeah.
I'm still
I
in
could
shock
still rock
about.
it out if I still had my drum set, but priorities changed.
Okay. So now we're going to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question is, what first stirred your heart toward healthcare and ministry through medicine?
You know, that's an interesting question because so I was a child of the 80s when the Cabbage Patch doll was big. And I literally have, my mom still has it, a Cabbage Patch that I did surgery on. Like, I knew that's all I've ever wanted to do. So I really believe that that's just what God made me to do. I told my parents probably a year ago when we moved into this building that I'm doing exactly what I always wanted to do. Like family practice, relationships, that it's what I've wanted to do my entire life. So, and you know, that's a privilege because not everybody knows what they want to do from the beginning, but I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. Have the Cabbage Patch doll that has sutures on it, literally. Like, I sewed it up. Yes.
What age did you say? What
I was
age were you?
probably like 8, maybe. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So,
That's great. When did your relationship with Jesus become personal? And when did your faith move from something you knew to something you lived?
So that's such a good question, you know, and a little bit of an intimidating answer. So a couple years ago, I had to give my testimony at church. I got asked to give my testimony at church. And so at first, when I was asked and I was planning for this, I was like, oh my goodness, like I was intimidated. A little bit like today, because our last podcast, you have this awesome testimony of like redemption and sobriety. And when I gave my testimony a few years ago, I jokingly said, I think I'm going to get up on the stage and say, here's my testimony. I have no testimony. And that is my testimony. But in digging deeper into that, I realized that like that is God's grace. And so I was raised in a Christian home. My parents prayed over me, still pray over me from day one. And so becoming a Christian was really a pretty easy thing because I had seen it modeled. I had seen my parents rely on the Lord for everything. And so at age 8, I asked Jesus into my heart. My dad baptized me at our church. And so I began that walk. And so when I contemplated this a few years ago, I realized like it is God's grace and protection for you to not have this radical testimony. So although like the radical testimony is still, it's so powerful that living it out and loving the Lord through the day-to-day mundane and the daily trust is still a beautiful thing. And so, so we've had hardships that we'll talk more about.
Yeah.
But my faith has always been a part of my life, but personal relationship at age 8.
But it also gives you like a testimony of what your parents did.
Yeah.
And what you now do.
Yes.
And just the faith to continue to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's protecting you. It's doing something.
It really is. And we all have a different story, but it made me realize that it's okay to have a boring testimony. Like that is a huge testimony.
That is, yes, I agree. So every strong story includes seasons of struggle. What have been some of the hardest chapters in your journey, and how did you see God's hand even in the middle of the pain?
So a lot of our hard seasons have to do with like our pregnancy and our kids being born. And so we have 4 girls. Our oldest is 18 and our youngest is 5. And after our oldest Darby was born, we lost a baby when we were like halfway through pregnancy. And it was such a painful season, and a season that it was hard for me to see good in that season. And, you know, it's changed the way that we love people through hard times. And so now I can look back. First of all, God carried us through those days. And I still remember I was in a dark place, probably the darkest place I've ever been. And my husband prayed over me, Lord, like just string the days together for her. And God did that. And, you know, at that time, we thought that pain would always feel like it did. But now it's just a sad time that we remember, but the Lord carried us and put people in our life that came and just sat in the hard with us. And so we try to be intentional when we see people going through hard things because people did that for us during that season. And so the Lord definitely carried us through that.
That's awesome. Was there ever a time you questioned your calling? Like, how did God confirm it again?
Yeah, I would say when I made the transition, for those of you that don't know, I worked in a big health system for about 18 years in family practice and was pretty burnout from conventional, like, big business medicine, and really had a fork in the road. Do I still want to do family practice, even though that's what I felt like I was called to do? And so it probably did make me question, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And then that trial is actually what led me to say, hey, I'm going to take this risk and walk in faith and open Grace Wellness.
Okay. So that harsh season refine your view of success and purpose and identity?
Absolutely. It made me question all of those things. And yeah, because you go, who am I? First of all, when everything's taken away, it also made me realize that sometimes the Lord has to take you away from something that you really care about for you to take a risk to do something else. And so that's exactly what I saw in that season, that I felt so broken because so much of who I was in that position. But like, the Lord's done something so much greater and where I am now.
True. What was one defining moment when you knew you were called to step out and start your own clinic?
Yeah, so kind of in that season of like, I can't stay where I am because I don't feel like that I'm really able to provide the patient care that I want to provide. And I tell people, don't be impressed. Don't be impressed by the fact that I opened Grace Wellness, because I did it with very little faith, so much fear, so much self-sufficiency. But I had some people in my life, my husband, my parents, that said, you can do this. And I did it with every backup plan that I could have. And so, I had 5 jobs whenever I opened Grace Wellness. And I did that for about 6 months. And I don't even know how I lived doing that, because I was really working like 24 hours a day. And I remember a conversation with my parents. Like I said, they've always spoke truth into my life. And they said, you know what, Bethany, God is calling you to trust him. And he has dealt so graciously with your unbelief through this season. And that stung so bad. But God was blessing Grace Wellness, but I was not trusting him and letting go of all of my backup plans. Yeah. And so I let go of my backup plans one by one and said, okay, I have to be all in. And really, I think it was biblical. Like, then the Lord opened the floodgates and we got busier and those things. But it was not because I did this thing of such great faith. Yeah. I actually did it with fear and trembling.
Yeah. So. What year did you do that? How long ago?
July of 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Starting a clinic and building a brand takes a lot of grit. How do you stay grounded when things get hard?
Well, definitely my faith is how I stay grounded. My faith and the people that, my small circle that pours into me. But my husband and I, every step of the way, have asked the Lord for wisdom and continue to do so, and then continue to give him glory for success, because it's not because of us.
Okay. So just like I said in the opening statement, you are a wife, a mom, and you just said that you have four girls. How do you balance being a leader, a wife, and a mom while chasing your goals?
Well, this is such a good question, because we talked about this in our last podcast, which was about mindset. And I have been reminded of it multiple times since that podcast. I think it is our daily anchors. And so I have a few little daily anchors, like time with the Lord, exercise, prioritizing what we eat, fitness, and that's what keeps me okay. So it's like our statement: let's be selfless so we can be, or let's be selfish so we can be selfless. And that is truly what we do every day, because we pour into people every day, but you have to pour into yourself. And that's getting up early and having a consistent routine.
Yep. And just like I always say, it's controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
And when you have, because your anchors are, you're able to have control of that without taking away from your family. And when you define those anchors, you're able to stay grounded. And yes, that was perfectly said. So when people walk into Grace Wellness, what do you hope they feel?
You know, we've said this, which I had somebody, I don't even think I told you this. It was the best compliment that somebody gave us like 2 weeks ago. A patient said, y'all are like the Chick-fil-A of healthcare when we walk in. And I was like, that is like the ultimate compliment, you know. But I hope that when people walk in that they feel the love of Jesus, and I think they do. The other thing that I hope that they recognize, because I'm aware of it every day, is that our staff really loves each other. Whenever everybody gets here in the morning, one day last week I was slightly annoyed because people were being so loud, and I was trying to see patients, and then I thought, no, they're all glad to see each other. Like they're all saying good morning to each other on a Monday morning. And so I just want them to realize that we all feel called to be here. They feel the love of Jesus, and you know, that we spur them along towards better health.
Chick-fil-A. I like
Chick-fil-A,
it.
I know.
It's like an experience.
Yes.
That is awesome. Was there ever a time you questioned your calling, and how did God confirm it again? And what have your trials taught you about surrender and trust?
So that's such a good question, because really one thing that I struggle with so much is self-sufficiency. And so I think all of this, so yes, I've questioned my calling as I've stepped out in faith, but all of it too has made me realize that I have to surrender every single day my desire for control and self-sufficiency, because that is not of the Lord. And I'm a doer and a fixer and can make things happen. And so, yeah, relying on God.
Okay. What do you think God has taught you through the discipline of running that applies to every area of your life? And back into wife, mom, and leader.
Well, so even in some of our podcasts that we've shared about running, it's a good analogy that you can really apply to a lot of areas of life. So number one, we set goals, we train for it. So for example, as a wife or a mom or a leader, you still have to train for it. So you've never arrived. So whether it's reading books or having mentors or having a business coach or your daily quiet time with the Lord, because that's the ultimate training, that you still have to go back to that, and that you are never going to be perfect. There's always room for growth. Yeah. So I would say that, and then you're not always going to get to the finish line that you wanted to get to. So, you know, I tried to qualify for Boston in June, and it was a bad race. And so what did? We regrouped, we kept on training, we kept on showing up, right? And so that's what we have to do as a wife, a mom, or a leader. We often say this together, and I'm aware of it, that we have to go back and do an audit, whether we're auditing for other people, but we do an audit for ourselves. And so I would say that that's what the Lord has taught me in the analogy between running and being a wife, mom, and leader, is that we always have room for improvement. We have to show up every day and be consistent.
Amen. I agree. So how do you balance training with the demands of your clinic, family, faith, and life? Because you run lots of miles every day. You attend Camp Gladiator workouts. You work out at home with your husband. You're training for DECA. You're going to Worlds and DECA. I could continue to go on of what you're training and living the life, and you are leading from the front. So how do you balance that? And what's one mindset shift that has helped you stay strong during the hard miles and hard seasons?
Well, so this kind of goes back to the anchors, our daily anchors. And really, probably about 8 years ago, I've always gotten up early, but about 8 years ago, I started working out early in the morning. And I would say that morning routine probably changed our life. And it's all about priorities. My husband and I both say that when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And so that's how we balance it, is that I get up really early and I plan for it and go to bed early. And so it's a priority. And so that's how we do it. So a mindset shift during the hard miles and hard seasons. I think it's just going back and regrouping and brainstorming on how you're going to change something to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Like you said, being flexible, because that's what we do in all seasons. And then, how do you handle disappointment? Did you ask that?
Didn't ask that.
Okay.
But I can't ask that. No. But I mean, you've trained through triumph and trials and things like that. So how do you handle? I mean, you briefly mentioned not qualifying in June for the Boston.
Yeah.
And or an injury.
Yeah.
How do you do that with grace?
Well, I mean, you watched me lay on the bed and cry for a little while after that race.
It's not uncomfortable. I'm not good at that. Just say it. It's not my strong point.
But you know what? After I got out of my feelings for a few minutes, I also was like, okay, well, like, what's next? You know, and so, I mean, we have to be resilient people and look back and just set another goal and realize that we're not always going to make it to the finish line that we wanted to, and regroup. What did we learn from it? You know, once you get yourself together with any kind of setback, then what do we learn from it?
I mean, I expected you to be disappointed in yourself, because you train for something, you set goals, and you want to accomplish it, and it's taught you a lot on everything, nutrition, and so many variables sometimes you cannot control.
And humility is the good thing. My quiet time today was about humility. Like, that's good. I said that in that podcast that we did, that it's good to be humble. And I have always been an overachiever. And so most of the time when I set a goal, I get there. And so, hey, the Lord can take you down.
I agree and that it's like ego. You know, you've got to get your ego in check sometimes. And I heard an acronym of ego of edging God out. And when you like start to edge God out and you try to make yourself bigger, he'll bring you back down.
That's right. You will cramp up at mile 15.
and still finish 4 hours.
Sub 4, but it should have been a lot better than that.
You guys saw her, she just corrected me, right? Just like the way I corrected her about the marathon, about the Marine Corps. Okay. What truth or scriptures has carried you through the seasons that still anchors you today?
So there's so many good scriptures, but one that I think of often more related to grace wellness is Ephesians 3:20, and it is, God is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all we ask or imagine. And what I love about that verse is that we can't put God in a box, that his capacity is so much greater than ours. And his timing is perfect. And so, Ephesians 3:20.
So when you think about your life story from childhood through your calling now as a nurse practitioner, owning Grace Wellness and everything else, what thread of grace runs through it all?
I think, so grace, my favorite definition of grace, I have it on my wall in the lobby, is it's God's unmerited favor. And so I think it goes back to my boring testimony that that's the grace that runs through it, is godly parents and the Lord protecting me, and just the day-to-day living it out, seeing it modeled through my childhood. And that's God's grace that runs through it all.
Yeah. Okay, so rapid reflection time. When have you seen God's grace show up in your life this week?
So God's grace is unmerited favor. Let's go back and define it. I would say God's grace this week is just that he still loves me even when I'm short with my kids, or maybe it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm not the nicest person at the football game because I'm tired because I got up at 2:20. Like, that's God's grace that he still loves me and my kids still love me even when it can be a little bit grouchy at night.
I understand that. What's one area where you need to show yourself more grace?
I mean, I'm definitely my worst critic and can be hard on myself about everything, whether it's fitness or whether it's leadership. And so I should show myself more grace, that it's okay that I do carry a lot. And, you know, it's okay if on a Friday afternoon I'm kind of depleted.
Amen. What's one habit or mindset that's helping you to grow stronger inside and out?
One habit or mindset is probably just prioritizing. This is a goal, prioritizing more spiritual growth and that daily quiet time, which has always been a priority, but I'm really trying to change that to be more focused.
Okay. Where is God asking you to take a small, faithful step of obedience?
I think God is always working on me with the self-sufficiency and trust. And so, a good example of that would be Grace Wellness is moving to a new location and expanding, and that requires just trust in the Lord's provision and his timing and how that's all going to look. And I have to daily lay down my desire to be self-sufficient and trust his plan.
What does grit look like for you in this season?
You know what? Grit is just what we've been doing. Just getting up early, running lots of miles, training, regrouping from leadership standpoint, wife, fitness, all of those things. It's just day to day.
Pushing through. Keep pushing. Who has encouraged or inspired your faith lately? And have you told them?
I'm kind of tired of rapid reflection now.
Nice try.
Okay. Who has encouraged or inspired my faith lately? Well, there's so many. I guess we'll say you, Christy. Put you on the spot. Just the having somebody next to you that's willing to ask the hard questions, hold you accountable to hard goals. So,
Okay.
just told you.
What are you thankful for that you used to pray for?
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for Grace Wellness. I'm thankful for my kids. We are really, I'm thankful for my kids. That I'm going to say Grace Wellness and my career, because it's like I told you that when I self-reflected a year ago when we moved to this building, that I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do. And so I'm so thankful, and I do not take it lightly that I have patients that have trusted me for 18 to 20 years.
Yeah.
And with the in hard seasons and good seasons, with the intimate details of their life through good seasons and bad seasons. And that is such a privilege to walk into people's lives during those times.
Where have you seen God turn something hard into something holy?
I feel like it's a little repetitive, but through our loss that I talked about, that was something hard that, like the scripture, what the devil intended for evil, the Lord intended for good. So that's turned into something where we can really see, we go back, children of Israel, when they were in the desert, they had set up stones of remembrance. And so we've always used that analogy in our life, that we go back to those hard things, and those are part of our testimony, and those are the stones that we tell our kids about and that we tell other people about, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So you tell people about that, because that's a season that you can go back to. Say the Lord was so faithful and he carried us. And so that would be those seasons that the Lord provided and that he carried us, and that he did give us 3 more healthy kids after that. So, and then the same with opening Grace Wellness, all of the provision that the Lord has given us, that's a stone. It's a big thing in our life. And I always challenge people. I challenge my Sunday school girls that I taught for years, you need to set up those stones, whether it's physical or it's just mental, and go back to that, because in your season that's hard is if you go back to where the Lord carried you, then that helps build your faith. That's how we overcome.
I agree 100% on that one. And how are you living out your why and not just talking about it?
I think, because this is one thing that I said about you, and we always want to lead from the front. And so living out our why is practicing what we preach, and caring about health and fitness and faith and all of those things, and not just talking about them, but showing up day to day for the lonely miles where nobody's out there at 3:30 a.m. So.
Oh, she's out there at 3:30. I'm out there at 4 because she's a marathon. I'm a half marathon runner, but it's all good. We're there early in the morning.
That's why I carry the taser gun, because I'm alone.
Thank you thank you for your open honesty and sharing things that I didn't know about yourself and your family and your business. And I mean, it is true. It's everywhere I've gone, and people that if you talk about Grace Wellness or anything like that, the most dominating statement is, I love Bethany. Bethany is awesome. She takes care of me. So, I mean, you're living out that mission of, from operating on that Cabbage Patch Kid to spending time with each person in the clinic, in that room, with tears, with fear, with everything. And you've prayed over people and you are caring for them and loving for them. And it is shown every day through your walk. So, guys, I hope you got something out of this. This is a way that you can just learn about Bethany, and you can see that even through a lot going on in your life, you can still achieve goals, set goals, have those anchors in your life. But that first and foremost, God, if you didn't hear his name in this entire podcast, it's God. He has to be first in your life in order to make things happen. And that is what I hear. So as you listen to this story, ask yourself, what's the race God has called you to run? And what small step can you take today to move forward in faith? So thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to this podcast of me interviewing Bethany. And we would love to hear your comments. Subscribe to Spotify and on YouTube. And I can't wait to see you guys again on our next episode.